Welcome to our third and final presentation in the Essay Map series. In this presentation, I'm going to be going over the introductory paragraph and the concluding paragraph for your essay. It's important to note that you write these after you write your body paragraphs. All right, you have to plan out your body paragraphs first because they will give you the information you need to write an effective introduction and conclusion. To sum up, the order in which you will produce a paper is you'll create your thesis, then you'll build your arguments to support your thesis. Those will become your body paragraphs. Once you've got that, you're ready to create the introduction and the conclusion. We'll start with taking a look at the introduction. Your introductory paragraph has three major functions. You want to get the reader's attention so that he or she will want to keep reading your paper. You're going to preview your main arguments, and then you're going to present your thesis statement. All right, so it all builds to your thesis statement. Now, here are the key parts. First off, you get the reader's attention. That's the attention-getting generalization. This is a one-sentence long statement. It connects to your main topic and gets the reader's attention. Here's a sample AGG. Quote, as Neil Diamond notes in his song I Am, not many people are fond of the sound of being alone. So, this connects to the thesis statement. And if you remember the thesis statement from before, which I'll show you right now, here it is. See, in the original thesis statement, it says that Jonas's need to make connections with others drives him from being an unthinking member of society to someone who questions and ultimately rejects the world that he once knew. That connects with this AGG, because the AGG here is talking about him not wanting to be alone. All right, so they build on this idea of Jonas needing to connect with others. Now that you have the reader's attention, you're going to preview your main arguments. Okay, these are the bridge spans. They're called that because they connect. They form a bridge from your introduction to your body paragraphs. All right, each bridge span is one sentence long. And you're going to preview each body paragraph in a short essay. Basically, you want a total of 3 bridge spans, previewing your big arguments. That's going to help convince the reader that you know what you're talking about and get them to keep reading. All right, now in your introduction, they have to be in order of appearance. You're previewing your ideas. Sort of first you'll talk about this, next you'll talk about that, and then finally you'll talk about this other thing. And that will all build towards your thesis statement. Here are some sample bridge spans. Pause this podcast and read through these. All right, and think about what they're telling you and how it's going to help build towards a thesis. Go ahead and pause now. So, what you see here is each of these things echoes one of the main ideas of your paragraph. All right, it's previewing them. If you were to look back at the earlier podcast and your notes on the body paragraphs, you could see that. Again, pause here and read the MIP and the bridge span on this screen and see how these two things echo one another. How one of them is previewing the argument of the other. Go ahead and pause here. Now that you have gotten the reader's attention and previewed the arguments you're going to make, you're ready to lead them to your thesis statement. And that's the final sentence of your introduction. It's the thing that everything in your paper will prove. All right? So, how do all these parts fit together to form your introductory paragraph? Let's take a look. Now, think of this as you look at this shape. It's just showing you what a paragraph would be, okay? The little hockey stick thing here, that just shows the end of a sentence. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sentences here. And I'm going to walk you through the logic behind your introduction. You're going to start out with a broad statement. Then it starts to narrow down as you preview your arguments. And finally it ends with a focused thesis statement. That's why it's shaped like this, right? Now, here's one way to look at this. think of your paper almost like a court case, and you're the lawyer. All right? At the beginning of the case, you come out and you have to give your introductory statement to the jury. So you get the jury's attention, then you tell them a little bit about the witnesses they're going to hear from. All right? Each of your body paragraphs, those are witnesses. All your evidence, those are the witnesses. So you lead them through by previewing your witnesses, and then you tell them what it is that they will absolutely believe to be true by the time you're done with your presentation. And that's your thesis statement. All right? So that's one way to look at this. Now let's take a look at the conclusion. And you're going to see that the conclusion is pretty similar to the introduction, only it's written in reverse order. Okay? Let's take a look. All right, so first off, notice how similar these are to the introduction, only they're in reverse order. Okay? Introduction ends with the thesis statement. The conclusion starts with it. So you're going to review or recap your thesis statement. Then you're going to review your main arguments. And then finally, you'll leave the reader with something to think about. All right? So here are the key parts. First off, a restated thesis statement. This recaps the central idea that your paper is about. It's one sentence long, but you word it differently from your thesis statement. Okay, you don't want to be boring and keep saying exactly the same sentences again and again. Your reader will just tune you out. All right, so here's a restated thesis statement. As Jonas demonstrates, the need for personal bonds can be strong enough to drive someone from their society. See, it's the same point that the original thesis made, but it's worded a bit differently. Now that you've given your thesis statement again, you're going to remind the reader about your strongest arguments. And you're going to do this in reverse order. All right? These are bridge spans, just like in the introduction, only you word them a bit differently, and you present them in reverse order of appearance. So you're going to remind the reader about your third body paragraph, then your second one, and then your first one. And there's a good reason for this. See, in the introduction, they're in the order that the reader will hear them because the reader hasn't heard them yet. So you're telling him you're going to hear this, and then this, and then that. In your conclusion, the reader has already read your paper. So you're reminding him about these arguments, starting with the one they read most recently. That's their last body paragraph. And then the one before that, that would be your second body paragraph. And then finally, your first body paragraph. So you're working with the person's memory, because that last body paragraph will be freshest in their mind because they just read it. So you remind them about that first. Here, you can take a look at a few examples. Now, pause this podcast, and as you look at these three bridge spans, turn back in your notes to where you have the printed examples of the ones from the introduction. And notice how similar they are. How BS1 in the introduction and BS1 in this conclusion basically say the same thing. Same thing with the BS2s and the BS3s. They're just in reverse order. So go ahead and pause and review those. All right, now you're ready for the last sentence in your paper. That's the ringer. It's one sentence long. It's going to connect to your main topic, and it will leave the reader with something to think about. Okay? Here's an example. Which is better, to be blind, ignorant, and happy, or to open one's eyes and see how shallow and alone one really is? See, this connects to the thesis statement, but it opens it up to sort of a big question that can get the reader thinking. That's how you want to end your paper. So, how do these parts fit together to form a concluding paragraph? Let's take a look. Here you see it's a shape that's just opposite of the introduction, because you're going to start with a narrow thesis statement that you've restated. Then you're going to remind them about your third paragraph, remind them about your second paragraph, remind them about your first paragraph, and then leave them with something to think about. Right? 5 sentences. Your concluding paragraph should be short and to the point. That is absolutely important. Same with your introduction. Now, to continue the legal case comparison, this is the concluding argument that the lawyer makes at the end of the trial. They tell the jury what they've got to believe, then they remind them about why they should believe that, and then they'd connect with the jury at the very end. All right, same basic setup. Now keep in mind, you are writing your introduction and your conclusion after you write those body paragraphs. Because you already have a thesis statement. You already have the main ideas for your 3 paragraphs. So that means when you write your introduction and your conclusion, there are only a total of 2 sentences, the AGG in the intro and the ringer in the conclusion, that you have to come up with from scratch. If you do this right, your introduction and your conclusion should pretty much write themselves. And here's how it all comes together. All right, and sorry for this being tough to read. The graphics in the background are a bit rough. So, you look at all the evidence you've gathered from the book, and you come up with something you can prove, a thesis statement. Now, from that thesis statement, you're going to plan out your best arguments. You're going to gather all that evidence that works, group it into logical arguments you can make, arguments 1, 2, and 3, and those, in turn, will become your body paragraphs. So you plan out those paragraphs and draft them, and then you use your information from those paragraphs to create an introduction. Then from there, you use that same information to create a conclusion, and then you're ready to proofread, edit, peer edit, all that good stuff, and you are there. Now remember, if you have any questions, if anything's unclear, you can rewatch this podcast. You can connect with me, either in class or online, and I will be glad to help you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in class. Bye.